Hi, this is Brennan from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and it's late. I'm also not feeling well, so I thought I would do something a little different. And I'm just going to go through all the Iron Maiden albums and give my take on each one of them. This isn't meant to be informative or anything like that. It's more, sort of my experience as a listener. I got into Iron Maiden when I was in middle school, or was it middle? Yeah, I think it was junior high, actually. I first went to a middle school, then I went to a junior high, and it was when I was at seventh grade in junior high. And my first exposure was, well, you know what? I'll get into it when I get into the albums. But basically, I just wanted to kind of give my take on them. I didn't want to, I'm not trying to do anything like a nerdy breakdown or anything like that, or rank them. I just kind of want to talk about my experience with each one and sort of how I thought about it. So obviously the first album is the debut, Iron Maiden. This is an album I had not heard this album until I was into the band for at least a year or two. I came to them by way of Dickinson Iron Maiden, and so I think my first album was Live After Death, and then Peace of Mind, and then I eventually went and got Iron Maiden. Had no idea they had a different singer in the first albums. And initially, when I first got the album, so this would have been like in 1990 or something. I don't know, maybe 89. That I got it, which was years after it came out. It came out in 1980. I was very put off by the vocalist because I was so accustomed to Bruce Dickinson, and it actually took me a number of years to listen to Killers and to Iron Maiden, the first two albums, and really enjoy them. Now, some of the songs were on Live After Death, so I knew some of the songs and liked some of the songs, but the vocalist was a hurdle for me, even though these are like very groundbreaking albums. And now I can go back and listen to them and really appreciate them. But when I was younger, I had a hard time. And these days, if I listen to the debut album, Remember Tomorrow is a song that I really like. Phantom of the Opera I love just because I love I always liked the book Phantom of the Opera, and I like the movie. And that was on, at least it was on the version of Live After Death that I had, or one of them, and so I was familiar with it. I also really love Strange World. And again, I mean, like Running Free, I was not a big fan of. Iron Maiden, I kind of liked, but I really preferred sort of the more, I don't know, I thought Strange World, Remember Tomorrow, those were two very melodic songs, and Phantom of the Opera was, I don't know, just kind of a cool, had some really cool riffs in it and stuff. And I liked Transylvania. And so then the next album is Killers, and we're just going to go through. I'm going to make sure I have the track lists in front of me too, so I don't overlook anything. And that was sort of a similar thing, except I really loved the song Wrathchild. That was again, I think that was one that was on Live After Death, and Wrathchild was a song that I really liked. There are other good songs in the album, but that's sort of the I don't know, that's the one that I always am interested in on this album. But again, I was not a huge Iron Maiden fan of the first two albums. I was much more into the later albums, and it took me years before I could get into Paul Di'Anno's voice. What is it? There's something about the graveliness of his voice, which isn't, now when I listen to it, it's not really that gravelly. He's got kind of a powerful voice, really. It's just got kind of an edge to it, I suppose, but it just wasn't what I was accustomed to being a Dickinson fan. And so the next album, Number of the Beast, it took me a couple of years to track this one down. I was, again, I was probably in the seventh grade in 89, 90, and it wasn't the way it is now where you can just go to the store and get every album you want. You have to go and see if they have the album there, and it just sometimes it would involve a trip to Boston to find it. So it took me a year and a half, 2 years to find Number of the Beast. And I think I even had the poster to Number of the Beast before I had the album, if I remember. but but this one is a great album. My favorite song on it is actually "Children of the Damned." I've always loved that song. I mean, obviously, "Hallowed Be Thy Name" is, that's a really good song too. That's a lot of people consider that the best metal song ever. I quite like it. That was very influential on my playing as a guitar player because of the types of harmonies they use. But "Children of the Damned" is definitely my favorite song on the album. I also really love 22 Acacia Avenue. I think that's a really well done song. And "Number of the Beast" I like, but it's honestly not my favorite on the album. And "Run to the Hills," I think that one's just been so overplayed on the radio that I don't even really know what my original reaction to it was at this point anymore, because you hear it so much. The Prisoners, actually not a song that I'm too into. Invaders, I was never too into. And Gangland, I was never too into. But "Children of the Damned" and "Hallowed Be Thy Name," those two songs really stand out. 22 Acacia Avenue is, I don't know if I would say it's underrated, because I think a lot of people appreciate it, but I think it is kind of an underrated song. Again, this isn't my favorite Iron Maiden album, but this is a really good Iron Maiden album. There's a reason why it's so famous. "Peace of Mind" is sort of, that's like my, for me, I'm always going back and forth between "Peace of Mind" and "Seventh Son of a Seventh Son" as my favorite albums. But "Peace of Mind" is the album that I like really sunk my teeth into. I came to Iron Maiden by way of Live After Death, and the song "Revelations" is on that album, and I really loved the live version of "Revelations." And so when I finally got "Peace of Mind," I couldn't stop replaying the recorded version of the studio version of "Revelations." I just thought it was amazing. Also, this was an album that this the Satanic Panic was still kind of residual, at least in my household, and so my mom actually took away the "Peace of Mind" album because she objected to some of the lyrics, and so I used to sneak into the kitchen where I knew she hid it, and I would put it in my little headphones at night, and so I'd like come down into the kitchen late at night and listen to "Peace of Mind." And so it also became more precious to me because it was this not just forbidden fruit, but something I had to really work to set aside the time to surreptitiously listen to it. In terms of the tracks, I like all of them. There's obviously stronger and weaker ones. "Where Eagles Dare" is one where when I first got the album, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't one that I was super into, but over time, after hearing it more and more, I really got into it. "Revelations" was always my favorite on the album. "Flight of Icarus," is a great song. "Die With Your Boots On" is solid. "The Trooper," I learned "The Trooper" on guitar before I heard the song, and so it was always fascinating to me how much faster the real song was than because I heard the guitar teacher showed me how to play it, and I had no idea the actual tempo of the song. And so I was playing it really, really slow all the time. "Still Life" is one of my favorite songs as well. That's just got like a really cool watery sound. "Quest for Fire" is definitely a little bit on the goofy side at times, but I like it. And "Sudden Steel" I like too. Again, those are probably two of the weaker tracks on the album, but I like them. And "To Tame a Land" was amazing. I was in a band, and that was one of the songs we actually covered. I learned the riffs in it, and I always liked that opening melody. And it was really the thing that kind of paved the way for me getting into Dune. I heard the song before I read the book, and that was what really piqued my interest in Dune. "Power Slave," this is an album I quite like. It was an album that when I first got into Iron Maiden, I didn't have a copy of myself. I had to go to my cousin Dave's and listen to his because he had a copy of it. But that in a way makes it even better to me because it's sort of one of these albums where initially I was deprived of, and so I don't know, I just developed an even stronger fondness for it as a result. I think a lot of people would rate it higher than "Peace of Mind," and I understand why, because it kind of is like the pinnacle of that era in terms of the sound. And I don't necessarily object. I mean, I think it's a really those from "Number of the Beast" to "Power Slave" is an amazing period of time. I prefer Peace of Mind, but Aces High is an amazing song. I love Aces High. 2 Minutes to Midnight is also really good, and I like that they're together. I think they're two songs that they really go well back to back. But something about Aces High just, I don't know, it kind of like transports me. I almost can feel like the wind of an arena when I'm listening to it. You can smell like the beer in the crowd and stuff. Lost for Words is cool. Flash of the Blade is also cool. Power Slave is, that riff. I mean, now a lot of songs have that kind of a riff, but at the time I remember being really blown away by that riff. And Rime of the Ancient Mirror, that's what got me to read Coolidge. That was, that was, I remember my cousin's mom was a school teacher, and he told me that she told him that was actually like a famous poem, and he found the poem, and it was many more years before I really appreciated how to read the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and like I had to have somebody kind of show me because I didn't know much about poetry. But again, I think if I hadn't heard this song, I don't know if I would have later had like a spot in my brain dedicated to absorbing Rime of the Ancient Mariner the way that I did. So, that was, I mean, again, it's a really good song. And it also was kind of like my introduction to like what an epic song could be. Somewhere in Time, I really like Somewhere in Time, actually. I think that you almost don't get Seventh Son of a Seventh Son without Somewhere in Time. So, I think it's really important to their development, but also, I mean, the songs in the album are all really strong. Like I like Caught Somewhere in Time. I like Wasted Years. Sea of Madness is good. Heaven Can Wait, I'm a little iffy on. It's not the greatest song. The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner took me a while to really enjoy, but I came to quite like that song. Stranger in a Strange Land is amazing, and Deja Vu. Alexander the Great, I have a soft spot in my heart for Alexander the Great. I was a history student, and just that they would write a song like that, I don't know, you must have just been reading a biography of Alexander the Great or something and decided to write a song. Like, I don't know. But that, it actually kind of, again, I think similar to Rime of the Ancient Mariner, it kind of created space in my brain, because when I first heard it, I wasn't as into history as I later became. And I think that was one of the things where, it kind of taught me what, I learned words like Macedonia, things like that, just things that when I finally encountered Alexander the Great, it kind of made it easier because I knew the lyrics to the song. And then Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, that is, that to me, that's their best album. Again, I do sometimes sort of go back to Peace of Mind between this and that, but I mean, I think if you put a gun to my head, this is their best album. The only song on it that I'd even complain about is Can I Play with Madness, and that's a single that I think did really well, so I can't really, like obviously people like it. It just feels a little bit out of place to me in terms of the tone of the album. But on the other hand, I don't know, maybe that change in tone and feel is a little important for the overall flow. My favorite song is The Prophecy. I always like that introduction in it. That and Hallowed Be Thy Name really gave me a sense of like I don't know, just it shaped my guitar playing. Moonchild's great. I always loved Infinite Dreams, and The Clairvoyant, The Evil That Men Do. And it's just the whole album's good. Again, the only thing I can complain about is Can I Play with Madness. But the feel of the album, it's got like it's got that liquid sound. It's just got this there's the synth and there's the harmonies, and everything sort of feels, it's got that Somewhere in Time aesthetic almost. Like it's just kind of a watery sound, a liquid sound, but there's a heaviness to it. So I don't know. I think that album is just super solid. No Prayer for the Dying. This is kind of the album that I don't know. I think I like it more than other people. I get why people don't like it. Like you can even hear some of the harmonies aren't in sync. Like time wise. There's something going on with some of the rhythms. Like I don't know if it's because of how it was recorded or if they were just trying to give it kind of a kludgy sound sometimes, but it doesn't sound as tight as their previous albums. It could also be because the change in guitarist. This is the first one with Janet Gers, and Adrian Smith isn't on this album, and so maybe it just takes time when you're doing the twin harmony thing to get guitar players in sync and have it sound smooth. But I feel like that's not the explanation. I feel like there's something else going on in this album. That said, I like the song No Prayer for the Dying. I like the song The Assassin. I like Run Silent, Run Deep. In fact, Run Silent, Run Deep is a really good song. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. People complain about that song, but I like it. It's a lot of fun. Maiden isn't always serious. Sometimes they veer into goofy territory. I don't know. I like that song. And Mother Russia, I think, is a really good song. Again, it's not the greatest album by a mile. I get why people rate it so low, and I certainly am not pulling it out, that often to listen to again. But I think part of it was when this was the first Iron Maiden album I got on CD. All up till then, all my Iron Maiden albums were on tape, and I finally got a CD player, which were still kind of new, actually. It was my first CD player, and I got this album, and when you bought an album back then, you either returned it or you listened to it to death. And so I just kept listening to it. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I have a soft spot for it. Fear of the Dark, now I appreciate Fear of the Dark. When it first came out, I thought it was a real odd shift in style. I didn't hate it. I just wasn't as enthused about it. I was expecting a different album. But now I go back and listen to it, and it's like it's really well done. It's well produced. It's got a lot of great tracks. Like Be Quick or Be Dead is a really great opener. From Here to Eternity is okay. I don't mind it. I like Afraid to Shoot Strangers. Fear is the Key grew on me. It took me a while to appreciate that one. Childhood's End, I love. I'm a sucker for tom rolls, and I believe there is some tom rolling going on in this song. Wasting Love, a lot of people don't like because it is obviously a very radio-friendly song. I really like Wasting Love. I think they did a good job. I think they're trying to reach a broader audience with that song, and I think it's hard to write a song like that, especially just having written songs myself and stuff. So I mean I'm nowhere near the level of an Iron Maiden, but I mean I've tried to write my own songs, and so I feel like that would be that. I feel like that style of songwriting is really difficult, and I feel that they did it well. Fugitive, I thought, was pretty good. Chains of Misery, I was not too into. Judas Be My Guide, I enjoyed. Weekend Warrior, I did not really care for. And Fear of the Dark, obviously, is a good song, but I think the thing is, its quality has grown because when they've played it live, they've slowed it down a little bit or something, and it sounds a little different to my ear. The album version's good. It's just that I think they've really improved that song, or they found the right cadence to it, and it when I hear the newer live versions of it, I think it kind of exceeds the original recording. So the X Factor, this is when I checked out. Again, like I said, I came in on Live After Death, and I didn't cover Live After Death because I'm not covering the live albums here. But I came in on Live After Death. Again, not when it came out. I came in at like 89. But I had known about Iron Maiden for a number of years before that because I would go to the Spencer's and stuff and see the posters, and I had like a Trooper poster. So they were kind of in my brain. But I always was sort of a Dickinson fan, and so the fact that they shifted when they said Bruce was leaving the band, I was like, well, that to me that like really blew. And then the 90s metal had really changed a lot, and so by the time the X Factor came out, the combination of Bruce being gone and metal being in this weird identity crisis where I did not buy the album. I listened to the album because my the guy that ran my D&D games at the time had bought the album. He was also an Iron Maiden fan, and so we would play the album in the background when we were playing Vampire or whatever it was we were playing. And I did develop an interest in some of the songs, but I refused to buy the album. So I remember liking Sign of the Cross. I remember liking the Aftermath. Those were the two that really stood out to me. There were others on there that were okay, but I had a real hard time with the vocal shift. I still do if I go back and listen to it, though. I can enjoy it a bit, but it's still not my favorite. Also, I feel like the pacing is a little bit dull sometimes. There's a lot of repetition on this album that I didn't quite enjoy. And the tone, like the aesthetic of the album, just feels, I don't know. I mean, again, I think there was an identity crisis in the 90s, and I think as bands go and as metal goes, Iron Maiden did a much better job than most other bands, especially considering they didn't have their usual singer. But I'm not a huge fan of the overall style of the album. So what is it? Virtual 11. I didn't pick this album up. I don't really know any of the songs. I've listened to it a couple of times, but it's kind of gone in one ear out the other. That doesn't mean it's a bad album. It just means I have, the Blaze Bayley era is not my favorite. So I almost reluctant to rate the album or comment on it as a positive or a negative. But this was a period where I was sort of like, I'm not buying an Iron Maiden album if Bruce is not in the band. So then that brings us to Brave New World, which I discovered when I went to my record store and saw it on the rack, and I looked at it and I realized that Bruce Dickinson was on the album. It might have actually said it on the cover, or maybe there was a picture of them somewhere, but that prompted me to get the album. And this is a solid album. Brave New World is that's up there with some of their old albums. Like I like Out of the Silent Planet. That's my favorite song on the album. But The Thin Line Between Love and Hate is great. It's got this wonderful guitar part in it that I love. Brave New World is solid. Wicker Man, The Ghost of Navigator, Blood Brothers. It's Dream of Mirrors. I like. It's a really good album. It's like them getting back to form. I thought it was incredible. And also, they didn't get rid of Janek, but they brought Adrian Smith back in, which I thought was pretty cool, because I think by that point Janet Gers was a part of the band, and it was nice that they brought Adrian Smith in, and then they kind of developed a sound around having 3 guitar players. Dance of Death, I like Dance of Death a lot. My favorite song is The Journeyman. I've always been a fan of ballads. Maybe it's because I'm a guitar player and I like to write songs, but in metal, I think some of the best ballads are metal ballads. And The Journeyman is cool because it's like an acoustic Iron Maiden song, and there's really not that. Can't think of a song that really sounds like that on their other albums. I mean, they've had, songs that are more, more romantic, more ballady, but not like this. I like Dance of Death. I like Face in the Sand. That is maybe between Journeyman or The Face in the Sand is maybe my those are my 2 favorite songs in the album. Passchendaele is it's a good album. I don't have any real complaints about it. I like the album. A Matter of Life and Death is also a good album. It's interesting because A Matter of Life and Death has some songs that I think are better than Dance to Death, but I'm more reluctant to listen to Dance to Death again than I am. To Matter of Life and Death than Dance to Death. And I think, I think maybe it's something to do with the pacing of some of the songs or something. Some of them take a little bit to build up steam, but I think it's a good song. Good album. These Colors Don't Run. I like Brighter Than 1,000 Suns is a great song. The Pilgrim I really like. The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg is a cool song. Lord of Light, I like. The Legacy. It's a good album. It's a good album. It's a solid album in my opinion. The Final Frontier was a tough one. I didn't dig this one as much as the others. It had some good songs on it. I really like Starblind. I think Starblind is my favorite song in the album. And When the Wild Wind Blows grew on me. and there's other songs in the album too that I like, but it's just not as strong of an entry for me as the other recent ones. Um, Book of Souls, I feel like I was like super enthusiastic when it came out, yeah, and I still like it. But it doesn't. Some of the songs I don't feel the need to listen to as much as I used to, and some of the songs that I end up preferring to listen to now surprised me. Like I'm not, like I won't. I'll oftentimes skip over the Red and the Black and things like that and go straight to stuff like Tears of a Clown or Empire of the Clouds. It's a good album. It's a good album, but and when it came out, I was like, oh, this is a masterpiece. But I don't know. I think my fondness of it lowered over time. Sorry, but I wouldn't say it's a bad album by any stretch, though. It's just I went from thinking it was amazing to good, if that makes sense. Um, and then that brings us to Senjutsu, which I quite like. It has its flaws. There's something about the recording of this album that feels a little off to me, and I often wonder if it's because I know that they had it recorded like 2 years before they put it out or something, and I've had things on my computer for 2 years, so I wonder if anything happened with the files that made the quality a little bit off or something. It doesn't feel as high production as some of the other some of the earlier albums in their second era there, but I mean I think it's a solid album. I like Senjutsu. I like Stratego. The writing on the wall. Again, it's the kind of song that I like hearing from them when they kind of go into a slightly different style like that. Lost in a Lost World. I like the Days of Future Past. I like Darkest Hour is good. The Parchment really grew on me. It's a good album. It's not like my favorite of their. I think Brave New World and Dance of Death are my two favorite. From this period, but it's good. It's a good album. I like it. Also, this is after Bruce has had his throat surgery for his cancer, and you can tell his voice is not quite what it was before. And again, I'm fine with that. Like I understand the vocalists are sort of trapped in their body, and their instrument changes over time, whereas a guitarist can just buy a new guitar. And I think as long as the vocalist can make the sound of their voice work, sort of like if you look at like Johnny Cash's later music, even though he's obviously doesn't have the strength that he had, he's able to make that older voice work in his favor. So I didn't really mind that there was a change in vocal here, but I did think they did a few things that undermine that. So there's a guitar melody that underplays. They have like a guitar line following his voice in a lot of the songs, and maybe they do that in other albums. I just don't notice, but it seems like it's almost supplementary to help give them a little more oomph, or they left like a lead track in there to help guide the vocal record, and they just didn't bother to take it out or thought it sounded good. But when I first heard it, I thought, maybe they're trying to buoy him, like it's like the band kind of like the guitar player showing support to the vocalist who's got a voice that may be ailing from surgery. But I kind of wish they hadn't done that. But maybe if they took that out, it wouldn't sound the same. So I don't know. But I thought this is an album where I listened to it a lot when it first came out, and I was happy with it, and I'll still throw it in and listen to it again. So it's the kind of album that still gets into the rotation occasionally. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. Took me about 30 minutes, so if you listen to the whole thing, maybe I'll do this in some other bands or something. But these are just my thoughts on the albums. I don't have any particular insights. I just thought people might be interested in knowing how I feel about different Iron Maiden albums, because I'm using my avatar on gaming forums and stuff as an Eddie logo. So I'll let you go, and until next time, I'll talk to you later.